Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Too Opinionated, where today I'm just thrilled to death to be joined by actress, singer, producer, director, Tamela D'Amico. So welcome, Tamela.
Hello.
You're a jack of all trades.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Or a Jacqueline. What's the female version of that?
It almost have to be Jacqueline, I think.
Yeah. I'll take it.
That's only fair. Maybe we're coining the phrase. I know, probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Well, Tamela, thank you so much for
Sure.
taking a little bit of time, especially right after a holiday. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's start. So let's start here. Introduce yourself a little bit and talk a little bit about what made you want to go into the entertainment business.
Sure. I am an actress and a filmmaker, as you mentioned, and also a recording artist. And what made me want to go into the entertainment business, I think there was not like one direct thing, but I always had an affinity for old movies and old TV shows. And I'm the youngest of 5 kids. And I think my mom was sort of like hanging on to me because my siblings are older. So I didn't go to preschool, and I watched not Sesame Street, but New York's Nostalgia Network, which essentially was like AMC. I mean, not AMC, Turner Classic Movies, like
right,
TCM.
Turner Classic.
So I used to watch all these old black and white movies and like episodes of the Judy Garland show, like stuff way before our time. And I think like watching that in that fantastical world and the old studio system where everybody had to do everything, I just naturally thought like, oh, that's the path. Like that's how you do that. You have to know everything and do everything and be a dancer and be a singer and all that stuff. So I didn't like when people ask me that question now, like, oh, you're so multifaceted, you know, which one do you like the best? And I was like, I don't like any of them the best. I guess the best one would be the one with less responsibility. But I think that's probably why I just naturally said, oh, I have these different arms of my talents and I'm doing them all. So what's the big deal with that? But in doing that, I think my parents they always cater to whatever we wanted to do and championed it, but not as like a stage mom. Like my brother is a doctor, and my mom saw he was really good with his hands as an artist, and he was interested in the human body, like the human form. So she got him these goofy Walt Disney encyclopedias, and in the back of the book there was like Goofy, and you would pick up cellophane and you'd see the innards of his body, like which each turn of the page.
How neat.
So yeah, like so, and like she was like gently pushing, you know what I mean, but not over the top. So with me, it was just like, oh, you're into music. Well, let's get you a music teacher, or you're into film. Like, why don't you do that? So it was just a gentle push. And what really did it was I had seen an old episode of I Love Lucy. I mean, what did it for me to get to Hollywood? And it was like a 2-part episode where they go to California. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go there one day. Like it just was, I didn't even know what California was. But I was like, oh, that looks cool. That's where all those movie stars are that I watch on this old network. So I'll go there. So that's kind of where that love came from. But beyond that, it's just, you know, I'm a storyteller, and any medium to do that, that's my joy.
Yeah. I love that that you said that about, you know, kind of being an old soul, you know, as far as watching the older movies and TV shows. I'm similar to that. I kind of grew up that way as well. And when I was listening to your music, it kind of that's what it gave me a kind of the feel of those older movies, or maybe the like in the movies when you see them going into the club and they've got a woman singing there in the club. That's the type of music it kind of reminded me of. I mean, did that have an influence on you that way?
It did. We had a very musical household in the way of my parents were always playing music, and from different time periods. I have a large family, so there's a lot of different age groups in my family, and anything from like 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and then of course later on my older siblings, 70s, 80s, 90s, etc. it was just always a part of my house. But I'm also Italian, so we always had Frank Sinatra playing and all that stuff, right?
Of course.
So I think, yeah, and it just naturally globbed onto me, and it's my love. Like when I first came to LA, I was singing pop music, and very quickly I was like, you can sing pop music all day, all night, get a one-hit wonder, or be really successful, but how is that going to stand the test of time in your career? You don't want to be, 80 years old singing whatever song, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's popular on the radio. It just doesn't translate. And I was like, jazz is my heart, so I'll just do that. And it's a niche audience, and I just happen to excel in that niche.
Yeah, really well. You get beautiful voice. It's I really enjoy it. I've been listening to it all afternoon, which means everybody in the house has been listening to it all.
Oh, I love that. Thank
you. Yeah, my wife's a big jazz fan, so she loved it. She was really.
Oh, good. That makes me happy. It's good for the car, because big band tends to get you like going, start speeding in the car for trips. It's good for that.
Yeah, it is good. Yeah, it is good. Yeah. Yeah, I like that a lot. What was your first job once you came out to LA?
Ironically, it just sort of happened in a way that I'm not going to say manifested. I just made it happen. I was going to college. I had just started college, and a producer that I wanted to work with, who was one of the first female presidents to run a studio. She was dying. She was about to pass away.
Oh, no.
And I was like, I'm just starting this amazing film school, but I want to see if I can go work with her. So I called, and I was like, hey, do you have any internships? And they're like, yeah, can you start blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh yes, I've graduated. I totally lied. So I came out and worked there, and she had passed away, and that was really awful. It was like somebody you think is like Superman, and then there you are planning their funeral. And I had worked with this company who has done a number of Warner Brothers films, Atlas Entertainment, and I just was launched into the business that way, with like major producers, major studio connections and things like that, and talking to these people. And then I had to tell them, oh, I actually have to go back to school. Like, I'm not graduated, because they wanted to hire me. So I was like, let me go back and I'll come back. So I did. And, I graduated, came back, worked for them, then worked for a number of other producers. And once people know that you have a good work ethic, you get passed around very quickly.
Sure.
So that's how it started. So I worked for Don Steele's company and Charles Roven, who produces all the Batmans. The company was called Atlas Entertainment, and it was such a launching ground to really understanding like studio speak and what all these things mean, and how movies get made, and behind the scenes of being on set and whatnot. So it was great, and I don't regret 1 second of it. And my school was a little upset, but I was like, this is an opportunity I'm going to miss, so I want to take it when I can.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you can't skip those opportunities. You never know when they'll come back.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really, really great. So when you first got in front of the camera, was it musically or were you acting?
It was acting. Yeah. It was acting from, a child, and middle school and high school, you do a bunch of different things. And then when I was in high school, I had a journalism program that I was a part of, where we had like a TV studio and a radio, all that stuff. So any way to sort of like tell stories or get information out there, I was a part of.
Yeah. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I found that artistic people tend to be involved in a lot of different artistic areas. They don't just focus on one thing. And that's pretty interesting. Do you also play instruments?
I play a little piano, but nah. I had this great teacher named Joan Frasina, who was my first vocal coach from Juilliard. But she looked like, did you ever watch that old show Bewitched?
Of course.
Okay, so the mother's name was Endora. She had red hair. Her hair was kind of done like this. My vocal coach looked exactly like her.
Yeah.
And she was very done up, and she sang everything in a Snow White, like operatic voice, no matter where you were on the piano.
Nice.
Long story short, she scared the hell out of me as a kid. Like, I was afraid of her. So I was like, Dad, I think I'm done with piano. Like I don't like she's creeping me out. But she was amazing. I ended up sticking with her. And she was great. And then, as I got into music and recording and whatnot, I regret not sticking with the piano, but I know I'll come back to it some point. So I'm not.
Yeah. That's so Bewitched, when cable TV first came to our area, which was in the middle 70s, probably for us. Mm-hmm. It only had 2 stations other than what we already had. It had Chicago and TBS. And that's all they showed was like Bewitched, Gilligan's Island, My Three Sons, that type of stuff. So we just watched that stuff to
nonstop.
Death.
Yeah.
Non-stop.
And it's still on, I mean, it's like
still on. Yeah. Pretty great. I actually miss those days, and which is kind of strange because there's so many wonderful things to watch now. I mean, there's almost too many choices. I think
it's hard. Like we have subscriptions to everything.
Yeah.
Hulu, and you're just like, what is everyone watching? What did you hear about this? Where is that now? And even though we watch Mandalorian like every Friday, we're like, where is it? It's like, oh, Disney Plus. Okay, yeah.
Oh, did you watch the new episode?
I sure did, Grogu.
Yeah. What'd you think of that name?
Okay, I think we all heard it and we were like, Grogu, like they couldn't come up with something better than that.
Right.
But knowing like Jon Favreau and how he's tailored this whole thing, it's gonna mean something else. Or maybe they're like, we're testing it. I thought, because we had just gotten my brother this, or my sister-in-law bought my brother the child animatronic little toy.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I guess they really just on the fly named him Grogu because this marketed toy, which would have been in the works for months. Is just called the child, so it's okay. I mean, it's not the greatest name. I think people really were hoping somehow that this was like Yoda reincarnated or it's him coming back in the future, which maybe it still is. We don't know, any answer to anything. Clone for sure. Yeah. So who knows, but he's certainly cute. And that little thing makes my heart melt. That toy, I played with it a lot over the holiday.
Yeah.
I just played with it.
Everybody loves little Yoda. I guess he's not little Yoda anymore, I guess, but
it's kind of a harsh name, like Grogu. It just sounds like messy. I don't know.
Yeah. It sounds more Gremlins than
yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
So I didn't realize that I used to watch a YouTube series. I think it was YouTube, but it was like a sex ed series. And I didn't realize you were involved in that. And I was kind of going through your stuff. I was like, I've seen that.
We were the first. Yeah. Sex Ed, the series, we had done sort of, this is an interesting story for industry people. I went to CAA. They were interested in taking me on as a client. CAA is Creative Artists Agency, for anybody who doesn't know. It's like the biggest agency in the entertainment world.
Oh, it's huge.
And yeah, huge. It's like, we call it like Death Star because that's what it looks like. It's like major. So I went there, and this is now going back almost like 10 years. And I was like, hey, I have this project. It's called Sex Ed and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I think it should be a web series. And this agent said, Tamela, no one's going to watch TV on the internet. And I was like, buddy, you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. This is actually my pinned tweet on Twitter because it's like a quote I'll never forget. I'm like, this guy, somehow he's still working, of course, making all those deals now. But anyhow, so we did it as a backdoor pilot that we were hoping to then sell. And what ended up happening was during the upfronts where all the press comes out to see what's coming up and whatever, this particular day, we were having our premiere, and all the upfronts for like PBS or some other networks that were not of the norm were there. So then the press saw Sex Ed, and they're like, we're going over there. So we got all these amazing write-ups, and we were a show that was not on the air yet. Yeah. And we were like, oh, this is super cool. So then all the networks were contacting us, and we pitched it, and they were not ready for Sex Ed then. Now the world has changed. We've had the Me Too movement. People are having a discourse. They were not ready for it then. And what we ended up doing was selling it or licensing it to another company called Coldcast, which is now defunct, but they were like a channel, like a YouTube kind of setup. And they ran it, and we were nominated for a Webby and a Streamy, which is like internet Emmys, which was great.
Right. Yeah.
And everybody that's in that show, if you watch it, has gone on to have fantastic careers.
I know.
Yeah, or already had them at the time. And really proud of that casting. And then, you know, later on, of course, some of the outlets that we had went to are now interested in sex ed, or now it's called sex education, because they couldn't use sex ed because that's the name of ours. And my partner in that actually had copywritten the or trademarked the name. So anyway, the sex education show that is on Netflix is very strikingly similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But ours I feel has a deeper heart, like it just has a different tone, you know.
It does.
But yeah, that's something we did. And after the Coldcast deal was up, we put it back on YouTube, and it just blew up, and we had like 150 million views or something.
Yeah, it's crazy. We watched Sex Education on Netflix, and I told my wife then, I was like, I've seen a show like this.
Yeah.
And that's when we went back and looked it up then. And you know, when I originally watched it, I didn't know really any of that cast. I recognized a few of them, but yeah, if you go back now, that cast they've all really become something. But that show was so funny and so well done. Yeah, I couldn't believe that was something you had a big hand in, because
yeah. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I wish we would have continued, but I feel like the world's ready for it now, and obviously we'd have to have a new cast of, you know, kids or whatever. But now Netflix is doing their version of, so it's fine.
That's right. That's right. So you've also had the pleasure to work with Disney.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the show you're on Disney?
The show is called Best Friends Whenever.
Yeah.
It can be found on Disney Plus. It's super cool. It's about two time traveling best friends. And I just thought, like, if I had this show when I was a kid, I'd be so into it. It's like mixing sci-fi with comedy. And Nora Dunn plays the older version of me. I played the younger version of her, which was like such a joy if you are a Saturday Night Live fan.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she's so funny. Yeah, and I was like thrilled my first day to be on set with her and be like I was like, let me try to control myself because I really love her. And she was just the coolest, sweetest, like most professional person. And yeah, that was a cool thing.
Yeah, that's really neat. And once you're, at least it seems like, once you're in the club, you know, once you're a part of Disney, you're part of Disney. So
forever. Yeah.
And I think that's really neat. So I'm sure I'll see you pop up in other Disney things down the road, because it is how it works.
It has afforded me a great number of fans, which then made me by default become a social influencer, because so many people have eyes on your page. But really, yeah, I mean, it was like I had my music track and then some acting stuff and whatever, but the Disney thing really blew up my social media, because those kids are so loyal.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they love that stuff. When did the show first come out?
It started 2016.
That's what I wanted to say that. Yeah. So my kids are older, but they were all Disney kids, but you can tell their age by what they were watching, you know.
Absolutely.
At the time. You know, my daughter was Hannah Montana and Lizzie McGuire and that stuff, and you know, even Stevens, and it's just every generation has their set of Disney shows that they identify with, but the fan base never really changes in size.
Doesn't die.
Just monstrous. So it's kind of great, because it allows you, because I know you do so much on the kind of on the indie set, that it allows you to bring some of that audience with you. I mean, that has to be a big advantage.
Yeah, it completely is. It completely is. Yeah.
So you've got your new movie on Amazon, right?
Amazon. Basically, it's called OTT, which means over the top platform streaming. Mm-hmm. So it's on everything except for Netflix, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, it's called One Little Finger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yes. I'm dying to watch it. We planned to watch it this past weekend, and it was just, there was too much family stuff. We just didn't get to
Oh,
sit down, but we're gonna do it as a family, but we haven't got to yet. So it's coming.
yeah.
But tell a little bit about that story, because it's such a fascinating movie, and I love the way you're incorporating disabled people into it, and it's just a wonderful project. So talk a little about that.
Sure. The film stars over 80 people with disabilities. So that's in itself is like
Yeah.
a world
It's
record.
amazing. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. And I play a character named Raina, who's an American neurologist who goes to India to research her ideas about music therapy for the disabled. And yeah, while I'm there, basically bringing people together, adults and children, through music, they learn things about themselves that they didn't know because I'm pushing them to do more. And the message of the film is basically there's ability and disability.
Yeah.
And everyone, no matter what your challenges are or struggles, you have the ability to achieve your dreams or at least reach for them. And it's a really beautiful, nice, important film because it brings up a discourse that is not often talked about, which is ability and disability, inclusion, diversity. We shot this in India, go back and forth over 2 years. And the main thing that I'm just saying on everyone's podcast is that disability rights are not charity, they are human rights. It's a human rights issue.
That's right.
And we've gotten this far with women and women's rights and all these movements that are going on, and it's like finally people are talking about things. And I really feel like this film is going to become a learning tool for schools, even in general, just so people see throughout the film. While I'm having my whole like eat, pray, love over in India, there you really go through the lives of the children in the film, and you see what their daily struggles are. And I think a lot of people who have never had that in their lives will learn quite a bit.
Yeah, even the trailer kind of gets you fired up. I mean, I can't wait to watch it because it looks like such a feel good story, and the trailer kind of hints at the different challenges some of the people in the movie are facing. I'm so excited to watch it. How did you become involved in that project?
Everyone says like India is magic, and it was a magical thing that happened. Basically, I'll give you the summed up 2 beats. One, I had been offered movies in India before.
Yeah.
And my representation was like, no, we can't send you there because we don't know the infrastructure. So we have no way of protecting you. And of course, that built up my fear of like, oh yeah, I shouldn't be doing that. And then one film that actually went that I said no to ended up premiering in Cannes. And I was like, oh no, I should have done that. It went to the Cannes Film Festival. Oh my God, So I was kind of upset about that. And then years later cut to now, I was randomly at this place called Lake Shrine, which is a Japanese garden and sort of like a non-denominational temple, heading out towards Malibu with a friend of mine. And we were just walking around the beautiful gardens, and there's a lake and there's a swan. And we're like, let's go down over there and meditate, just kind of being silly. And I did. And I'm like telling this story so many times, but it really was magical. So I went down to the water, and we were just meditating. And as soon as I closed my eyes, I popped open my eye because I was like, oh my God, Jordan, I think I want to go to India. Like I had a flash of India. And he like opened up his eye and he's like, it's already happening. So it was like this weird moment. Then,
I love that.
Yeah, 2 weeks later, randomly, I get a message on my Facebook. And it was from the director of the movie. And he was like, listen, I have offered you this movie. I just want to make sure you know about it because your rep said no. And I really feel like you should be in this movie. So I was like, wait, what? First of all, not cool that somebody said no before I knew about it.
Right.
But I think, I think they assumed like it was going to be a no because we'd passed on the other 2. Right. So that was not cool. So I was like, send it to me. I'll read it myself. I read it that weekend and I was like, this is a beautiful film. It's a beautiful story. How can I not do this? And he's like, listen, I know you probably have fear, like vet me. He is a musician himself. So he knew me from the Grammy Foundation. He knew of me, but I didn't know him. And I was like, I don't know why you picked me, but I'm happy to look at this and whatever. And he's like, vet 20 people who know me, ask them about me, like, be comfortable. We're going to protect you and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I did. And I went over there and basically over the course of 2 years because they have a different shooting schedule. Also, I could not be there for 2 years.
Right. That's a long time.
Yeah, and there was a 6 months training period because a lot of the kids in the film were not actors, so they went through training to be actors.
Right.
So there's a lot of windows back and forth of me traveling and people not knowing where I was and things like that. But it that's how it came to me. And to this day, I'm like, I really don't know why Rupam, the director, picked me, but I'm glad he did because it was a life-changing experience. It's unlikely I'll ever experience something like that again in its entirety. With regard to what the movie is about and just that whole thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's such a beautiful film, and the theme song is just beautiful. I love that, and I saw that it was up for a Grammy. Is that right?
Yeah, it's on the ballot.
On the ballot?
Yeah, I don't know if have they chosen yet. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the nominations have been announced yet. I may be thinking.
Well, if they haven't been, just get ready because once this podcast gets out there, it's picking it up.
All right.
Done deal. That Mike guy liked it. It must be good.
Yeah.
Sign off on it. Now it was really a beautiful song.
Yeah.
I enjoyed listening to it. That's I'm really excited about that film because it's just I think especially this year, we need films that are going to lift us up and kind of show us what we can accomplish, as a people. And
that's for sure.
Really good message.
Especially like living in America, Americans are sort of just like narrow thinking a lot of times with their own issues and whatever. And this is an India-US co-production. So it's an Indian film. It's shot Indian style. Even that, I think, beyond what the subject matter is, you'll see India and be like, wow, I really know nothing about India.
Yeah.
And India is fantastic. The people are wonderful. I'm like, India really needs a good PR person because we know nothing about them. We just hear all the, crazy stuff. But ironically, when I was over there, they were like, oh, we're so sorry for you. And I'm like, why? They're like, oh, everything going on with your president. I was like, oh.
Yeah. We have difficulty giving that type of empathy back. We got to do better with that.
It's true. Yeah.
Was there a part of India that you liked more than others? Is there a part that kind of stood out to you?
Yeah. When I first went there, the first trip, we were shooting in Assam, which that is where all the black tea in the world comes from.
Okay.
So it's sort of like northeast. If you've never seen what a tea garden looks like, you should look it up. I had no idea. They're little.
Yeah, I gotta look that up.
Like little bonsai trees. It's very small. And just FYI, if you're drinking Lipton tea, you should probably stop. I saw how the tea was made, and Lipton tea is like the dregs. It's like the burn off, the last thing that
really?
It's bad. But if you have true black tea, like from India, it is very potent, very strong. It has a lot of flavor.
What brand do you drink? That's what I need.
I actually have some from India, and it just says like Assam something on it. I don't know. Yeah, I have so much of it. Yeah, I have so much of it. But we shot in Assam, and it borders Pakistan. So the government was like, "What are you doing? Why are you going there? Are you a mole?" Like were trying to figure out if there was any sort of weirdness going on. So my passport was not cleared. Yeah, they didn't clear my passport until like 5 hours before I boarded.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so that was super stressful. But Assam is gorgeous. It's a beautiful landscape. The tea gardens are incredible. You'll see them in the film. We walk through them, and you're going to be like, "What is this little like shrubbery?" That's the tea garden, and it's a pretty unique experience. By day, it looks gorgeous. By night, there's all this shadow, and I'm like, "This would be great for a horror film."
Yeah,
takes on a different.
You could have done 2 films at once while you were there.
I know. I thought about that really.
One day, one night.
Yeah.
There was another web series I wanted to ask you about. I want to get the name right. Englishman in LA.
Yes.
Yeah, tell me about that one.
Okay, so Englishman in LA was a web series, and then it actually became a movie on Amazon.
Okay.
Like a continuation.
Yeah, I saw it was on Amazon, but
it's different.
So did they take a bunch of the episodes and put them together as a movie, or did they remake it?
They remade it as a movie, and they added a bunch of like internet YouTubers and all those people got cast, and it
Okay.
changed things for a little bit, but it still has the same feel.
Yeah.
I play an agent called Cassidy Clark, and I'm just a complete psychopath. I mean, I'm just like a hyper nonsense woman who has this guy, the Englishman, who comes to town, and he's got a book, and I'm completely saying the book name wrong, and I'm like, yeah, we're gonna do this. You need this. You need that. It's a kooky character, but I love doing it because everyone in the cast, I had gone through a workshop in LA for pilot season. So we all came together, like we met on this workshop, and we were all New York actors and did this little workshop in Los Angeles. And then afterwards we were like, the workshop was cool, but we together were having so much fun. So Cameron Moyer, the writer and the actor, the star in the Englishman, is he put the whole thing together, and he's like, I want to make this vehicle for myself, and I think you should play this, and you should play this, and whatnot. And it just sort of came together.
Yeah, that's another one. We're going to have a whole evening of movies to watch. So check out too. Can you still find it as a web series?
Oh yeah, if you just go online to YouTube, Englishman in LA, you'll see all the little.
Okay. Because I'd like to. I like to compare. When there's different versions, I like to kind of see what has changed. That's the
yeah. I personally favor the web series, but.
Yeah, but you're in both.
I'm in both. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The movie it's just a different track. It's a movie. I mean, it's just a different track. Different tone is what I'm saying. Like the web series is a very particular style. You'll see.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. That's going to be date night. We'll do the we do our date night. We get the the wine and the cheeses and the little
perfect
finger foods, and then we sit down and watch good movies. So that's
cool.
Especially now, you can't go anywhere.
Our movie list is so long. Like if I shared how many movies we've watched in quarantine, you'd be like, whoa. Yeah. We revisited things like, things you saw as a kid. Yeah. Completely, you realize like how much you missed, like it went right over your head. So it's super cool to kind of revisit those things. We have done a bit of that, some of the, especially the 80s movies that I really kind of, we've done some movie nights with, they're basically grown kids, but it's still fun to sit down and kind of, redo those with them. So here's the interesting thing about that. I was just with all my nephews and they're like, yes, we watch Back to the Future. Yes, we watch this. And I was like, really? I was like, you're into it? You really are? So their age group is somewhere between like 15 and 20. Okay.
Okay.
I feel like they are more like how I grew up, but 21 to like 28-ish.
Yeah.
There's a weird disconnect. And this is my theory, okay? When I was a kid, you had to hunt for information in the library.
Yep.
The Dewey Decimal System, okay? So they're like, here's what you're going to research. Go to the card catalog, look up the blah, 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 and go and find that book. Open the book. Obviously, the internet was there too, but still, you just had to get your information. Yeah. You had to find it. So nowadays, kids just go like Google search, whatever the first thing that comes up, okay, answer. There's no work in that. There's no critical thinking. There's no progressive thinking. It's just immediate, okay? So now translate that to the medium of film and TV. The 80s and early 90s movies are, here's the situation, believe your circumstances, this is magic, the kid opened the book, now you're in the never-ending story, there's two worlds happening, go. Those kids that I'm talking about, because they don't have, this is my theory, because they don't have those other thinking skills, they ask a lot of questions, they have to be told everything. So what's happening on television now is that everything has to be spelled out in the first 20 minutes before you can continue your story. And I'm like, this is so terrible. This is why like these reimaginings of Twilight Zone's not working, because Twilight Zone, you press the button, the old Twilight Zone, you're in it, the guy's on Mars, but that's it. You have to go with it.
Yeah, you got to figure it out. That's right.
Yeah. So I'm like, there's a huge disconnect. But now for some reason, I think because these 15 to 20-year-olds who have parents who are 40 and below, or maybe a little bit older, they are showing them their movies from the 80s. So they're actually getting schooled on how to think that way again. but there's a definite window where they miss the mark.
I love that theory. That's, we, my wife and I talk a lot about the dumbing down of TV, especially, but movies too, where everything has to be just kind of spoon fed to you. Everything has to be explained when it's even the obvious stuff they're explaining to the point that it actually hurts the product.
It does.
Takes away from the product. And
Yeah.
that's a great explanation. I've never really thought about it, but I believe you sold me. I believe.
Well, here's how I came to that theory. I had a summer of interns at my production company, and here's what happened. If I gave them, and meanwhile, one's from Australia, one's from Chicago, like from all over the place. So it's not like they talked to each other and had the same problem. They were all from all different parts of the world. So I gave them a spreadsheet and I said, here are the list of these artists, like these celebrities. Find out which charities they belong to. Some things on the spreadsheet had like, this is their manager's number, or here's where I think their website is, like some information listed on this grid.
Yeah.
So what was happening is they would each Google the name and be like, Christina Aguilera charity. If nothing didn't come up right away, they'd be like, there's no answer. So independently of each other, they asked me, so if we don't find the answer, do we just delete her name? And I'm like, what? No. You continue searching until you find out. And if that did not lead you to the first answer, then find out who her manager is and then call her manager and ask them, like, there's an answer out there. It's there. It exists. So but it was like they didn't know the next step and they had to be told the next step. And that I was like, wow, this is super interesting. Like, why is that innate to prior generations? So I just figured it had to be because we had to hunt for information. Nobody gave us the information. We had to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. With my generation, it was in an encyclopedia. There was no internet.
Even worse. Yeah.
So, but I mean, I remember in elementary school taking a field trip to the library to learn the Dewey Decimal System, just so that we could do research when we got a little bit older. Once you got older in school, you started having to research for papers and things. You needed to know how to use that system.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's my son he does this podcast with me on occasion. He's a librarian. He's been working in the library for about 4 years, and he talks some about that. I mean, he wasn't really around when Dewey Decimal was really the way they were filing, but older people that come in the library, that's still how they want to look things up. So he has to spend time kind of explaining to them how it works now. Yeah. So he's educating, the older ones, where the younger ones come in and they're fine finding stuff because it's just.
I mean, obviously it's so much easier now. Yeah. But still, it's like the first answer on the internet may not actually be the answer.
A lot of times it's not.
Yeah.
That's a great theory. I'm gonna steal that one because
do it. Yeah, spread it around. I just feel like
spread it around because I think there's something to that that makes sense. And you're right. There's a gap there because now, we really are starting to share some of our, the things we enjoyed as a youth, and now we're passing those on. But those that are just a little bit older, they probably missed that. They probably didn't really have that.
It's also, there's a cynicism because they're like, well, I wouldn't do that. Why would she do that? It's like, well, that's not you. That's the character, and the character has, goals. It has nothing to do with you. You just have to watch the story.
Yeah. I think we're going to fix it. Now we know the problem.
That's right.
So now all we have to do, we have to get everybody between, 20 and 30, say, watching older movies.
Yeah. I don't even know if it's that far. It's just like a window. It's like the window of the 20s. It's like 21 to like 26, 27. Yeah. Maybe it's like a 5 to 6 year window. So
I need to see, my oldest is 26.
Yeah.
So I need to kind of check that on her, but I suspect that she's going to be kind of the exception that proves the rule because she grew up with me, and so we've been watching stuff, her whole life. But I don't think that's the case with most.
Yeah.
I don't think they're watching I mean, not even just from the 80s. You know, we were watching, you know, I grew up watching stuff from the 40s, 50s, 60s, and I'm passing that stuff on.
It's funny because I just read this thing in the news that a lot of people are not have never seen an old Hollywood film now, like kids that are coming up. They're not interested. They don't even know what it is. And I'm like, I've always been interested in our history just as a people. And as now being like a social influencer and dealing with a lot of social influencer people of all ages.
Yeah.
I'll say, oh, what about this? Or to whatever we're talking about. They're like, well, I wasn't born then, so I don't know that. I'm like, right, but you can still learn about it.
Learn it.
Yeah.
Well, and we don't read like we used to. You know, when I was growing up, I had most of the classics read, you know, before I was out of middle school at least. And now all those books that I was reading, they're just not read anymore. You know,
well, they've been banned probably.
A lot of them probably been banned. That's probably true.
Yeah.
So what does see? I've had people call us, my son and I, social influencers. What does that mean? Because that's what I always say. I was like, what does that mean? You know, what does that mean?
I think, you know, people who are not in that world, who like to judge that world, think it means something else. Yeah. I think they think it means just people hawking product and
whatever.
Yeah. It came to me by default, like I said, because of my fan base, and they were like, you have eyes on your page, so would you, you know, do an exchange of a product? And then of course later on it became a paid situation. For me, my own moral rules are I like to promote eco glam. That's my hashtag, which essentially is it has to be okay for the planet. It has to be okay for the earth. It has to have an integrity of like fair trade or owned by a woman or something to that value. And also be glamorous. I mean, I think a lot of people think like veganism or vegetarianism or being sustainable is like hippie. And I'm like, it's not. It's just trying to take care of everyone. And it's a niche thing that I decided to focus on specifically with products in addition to some other like lifestyle things that I'll do. But it just means, you know, you've got eyes on your page and you've got engagement and people are they trust you. And if you have integrity, they want to see what you're pushing. Right. And I think there's a lot of people who do not have integrity and just push whatever. And I can't do that. I just have a sense of liability that, you know, someone tried to get me involved with this health organization that had spirulina and like all these different products, right? Yeah. So, and the contract was very large and I was like, oh, this is fantastic. This is totally up my alley. And then the spirulina arrived and it said like made in China, Prop 65, all these things. And I was like, I thought you guys said that you were out of Miami. And they're like, oh no, our US distribution is from Miami, but everything's overseas. I was like, I can't push product that is made in China at a spirulina farm that I know nothing about.
That's right.
Like,
that's right.
Yeah.
Good for you.
But, and like I had to rip up that check and that was like cry day, but, but you know, they went right back on to the whole system and offered it again at an even higher contract and somebody grabbed it. Yeah. And I just, you know, there's too much. I actually carry social influencer like insurance.
Oh, I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yes. My accountant said, you know, add that to your business policy because if for say like somebody does do something that I recommended or if it's one of my branding deal things that has my name on it and you get hurt, like there has to be a protection from that, you know?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So.
Yeah, that's really interesting because it's, I mean, what a strange time that we live in that you have the ability to influence people just from home, you know, just from being or wherever you're at with that. And I think a lot of people misuse that. So I love that you're actually using it. You're using your powers for good.
Yeah, and I only would, but I think here's the part which makes it lucrative. Commercials don't exist anymore like they did.
Right. That's right.
Unless it's, you know, Super Bowl Sunday, football, like people are interested in commercials then. But beyond that, what do? You bypass them, you're annoyed by them. Yeah. So this is a very friendly way to be a commercial and have people engage. And I try to make them entertaining or just informational in a way that is just friendly and nice. And I only push things that I would actually use myself. So.
Yeah, no, that's good for you. That's really great. So I wanted to ask you about your first album that you put out. I think, and if I'm wrong, you just tell me, but I think that I read that Peter Krause may have been involved in that a little bit.
Peter Krause.
Yeah. Explain that to me. How did that come about? 'Cause I'm a big fan of his. I just think, he's such a good actor.
So when I first came to LA and I started working with a bunch of different people, I decided to work with a management firm that represented him because just as an actor, I have a need to know attitude. Like, if you're my manager, like, what is your job? What do you do?
Yeah.
Let me understand a contract. So I was going to the Strasbourg Actor Studio at the same time and working there. And he was one of their clients, and I met him there. And over the years, we kept in contact. And then I had investors on this album. I was going to do it independently because it cost too much to do through the record label, because big band is not generally done in a major way. So I wanted to do it the real way, like Frank Sinatra did. So I had investors, and last minute sort of, and this has happened on several projects, so it's nothing new if you work in the independent field at any point in this business. But the investors fell through, and they're like, oh, can we do this X amount of months later? And I was like, well, I have the team now. So what do I do? And he had heard that this was going on, and he was like, like, I've seen you at the start of it singing out here, and I'd like to be an exec producer on that.
That's great. That's great. He seems like such a good guy, just from watching, you can't tell for sure, but from interviews and just interactions that you see with him, he just seems like a good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great. That's great. I love the big band sound. I'm gonna recommend it to my mother to play for my father.
Yeah.
He grew up, with Glenn Miller, and he loves the crooners, Sinatra and all that.
Yeah.
So I think he would like it, but he would never find it. She's gonna have to play it for him. She's actually pretty good on the media, but he struggles with that. So I'm gonna recommend that she plays that for him. I think enjoy it. Yeah. And what was the song before? I know we got to wrap up, but before I let you go, what was the song that you sang that it's very James Bondy?
Oh, Charade?
It may have been Charade. It just had a very James Bond feel. Like I was listening to it and I said, well, she could do a Bond song. They should totally get her for that.
That would be such a dream. Is that the one you're talking about, or is it one from a film? From the album or from a film? Well,
let me no, I didn't write it down. I think it was a film.
Okay. No, that was a song called Love in the Gun.
That's it. Love in the Gun.
Yeah. Okay. So that is from oh my gosh, Rob the Mob. The name escaped me.
Rob the Mob. That's Rob exactly the Mob. It.
Yeah, which is a fantastic film. Definitely, that should be your date night film. It's based on a true story about how these people infiltrated the mob, and they really did it. And I sing the song in the film, I think about 6 times, 6 different ways.
I love this.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I was going to say, I saw, I can't think of the actress's name, but I'm pretty sure she's on Bosch now, but that she was in that movie, and I like her. So
she's great in it. Nina, oh my God, her name is everyone's name's escaping me. It means it's lunchtime.
I know. I should have wrote that down because I absolutely loved it, and you really do. It's very Bond-like. That's the feel it has to it, and it's one of those songs that kind of builds as it goes, and it's just I loved it.
Yeah. So you'll hear it. I'm like humming it. I'm singing it in Italian. I'm singing it.
We got to watch that one too. We got to watch it. See, the problem is we're basically stuck inside. We're going to have all this stuff watched. It's going to take like a day and a half, and
I know.
Then we got to find something else.
You do the Tamela D'Amico marathon.
Yeah, I think that's what it's going to be. That's going to, cool. I think I love the acting that you do. I think it's just a little different. It kind of reminds me of old school, just like your music. And, I'm excited to get to really sit down and enjoy it. And it was a nice surprise, seeing that you were involved in things that I had watched previously. And really, that was awesome. I love doing that when I'm doing my prep, and I'll be like, yes,
Yeah, that's cool. That makes me happy. I'm like,
yeah, that's really good.
Still alive.
So before you go, is there anything else? That's a lot. You got a lot going on, but anything else upcoming that we can kind of keep an eye out for you in?
Yes. Well, it's something I'm actually directing. It's a project called the Antiviral Project, which basically takes stories from all over the world, different filmmakers, different stories of different, like Germany and Italy and America, and different peoples and what their experience was through the coronavirus. Not necessarily about the coronavirus, but it's just like little short films that are going to be threaded together. And I'm doing one on the Lakota people. It's actually a like sort of a dramedy, fun little thing. And working with a writer named Lucas Brown Eyes, who's a Lakota writer. And yeah, I should be getting that script, I think, this week, and then we'll start filming that. And it's a short, like I said, threaded with other ones. So it'll make a feature, but I think once it's released, you can watch each of them independently of each other as well.
Yeah, well, that sounds great. That sounds great.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see what comes out of this past year, because I think there'll be a lot of creative things coming out. Some probably about the experience, and some sparked by the isolation, let's say. So it should be interesting. Well, that's great. Well, terrific. Yeah, I hate to let you go because I'm enjoying talking with you so much. I think you're going to have to come back. There's not
anytime.
I'll talk your ear off, and I don't want to keep you forever. Yeah, we're going to have a part 2.
Okay, I'm down.
Where can people find you? Where's your website? Where can they find you on social media?
Sure. My website is tameladamico.com, and all my socials are at Tamela D'Amico, which is TameladAmico.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. Can you speak any other language besides English?
I fake a lot of them.
Yeah, I try, but I'm terrible. I didn't know if maybe you knew some Italian.
I do. I have done a lot of music. The Rob the Mob song is in Italian, in both actually English and Italian.
Yeah, I listen to them.
I have a film that's going through festivals right now called Love Is Not Love, which is a very avant-garde film, and I only speak Italian in that movie.
See, okay. I had a feeling. Yeah, I didn't know. I heard the song in Italian. I just assumed that you probably at least.
Yeah, I do, and I understand a lot more. It's hard now. Like if you're not speaking every day, and with any language as an adult, like it's really hard to re-grasp the grammar.
Yeah.
So, but I would love to actually get back to that.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much, and please do come back. I'm so excited. You're so talented. It's just a real honor to speak with you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Okay, hold on one second. I'm going to hit pause.